Um, I'm going to say this wrong. Quit your job and get another one.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Real Deal Landman Show. I am Jerris Johnson, joined as always by Drew Hopkins. Obviously you can tell one of us is dressed to impress, and I'm not sure what Drew is trying to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jerris, the comedy. We got to leave that out of these episodes. So today I am dressed as a businessman. I did do the pink tie for breast cancer awareness. I thought I would bring that into the mix and just keep the awareness up. But yeah, felt like I needed to dress up today. I figured if we were having such an esteemed guest on the show today, I needed to look the part, and I'm glad that you didn't follow suit.
I never do. I don't go anywhere with you. I don't dress up. I don't do any of that stuff. In fact, it's good that you only see my top half because the bottom half is even more casual than what this is. I am wearing pants.
Thank goodness.
To clarify that.
That was going to be the next question for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of costumes, do you remember back in the day when you used to dress up and do your Aubrey McClendon impressions for the Chesapeake United Way events?
I don't want to say it's one of the only things that I'm remembered at Chesapeake for, but whenever I do see people, like we run into people all the time, right, from our past, and that gets brought up more often than not. I remember the Halloween parties. Those we could do an entire show on the Chesapeake Halloween parties. They were fantastic. Got to see the talent of the people that work there, everything from singing to stand-up comedy. The guy that I can't remember his name off the top of my head, he'll kill me, but he did the Napoleon Dynamite dance like to perfection. They were so fun. They were so incredibly fun, and just something like it was a staple that Chesapeake was known about that. And again, we always talk about gratitude and being thankful for things. And I was very thankful to be asked to kind of be a part and lead that along with my other comedy duo that I love so much, Patrick Crane. Patrick, you're not listening, but if you were the yin to my yang. He was fantastic. He and I would write those shows together, and he was a hilarious straight man. Good guy. Good dude.
That's right.
Yeah. It's a good time.
So we have wrapped up our travel trifecta. Quick recap.
Right.
We were in Boston. Miami. Miami, we just kind of met up. We didn't record anything in Miami. We were supposed to, and then you never showed up.
And then I decided to go to the beach.
To not.
That's okay. But we did Boston, and then most recently, we were here in Oklahoma City together, not at our Real Deal Landman studio, but downtown Oklahoma City for the biggest audience that we've done live in front of, to disappoint live, of about 250 people. It was pretty cool.
And everything worked, which was amazing.
And oh my gosh, anybody listening, I want you to know, Jerris and I are so incredibly tech advanced, and the fact that these shows even make it to air is pretty amazing. But to do a live show in front of people and to be on a timeline, very thankful for Jerris for everything that he knows how to do, and very thankful to our guest Artie Amin, who was on with us. He was fantastic. He was very owner relations focused at an owner relations convention. The NARO convention is just a huge owner relation get together, and people that are kind of learning about royalties and being able to work alongside the companies and get the best results from, their connections with each other. And so it was a really fun time to be able to talk about all of that and the experience that we all have. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a blast.
Yeah. For the folks that haven't listened to those last 3 episodes, all of them are really good. Quick recap. In Boston, we had Larry Kosho on. By the way, I saw Larry. He attended the OCAPL meeting where I was presenting, and he was there. He was walking around.
Doing well.
Seems to be doing great.
Fantastic.
Still in recovery, but he's getting better every day.
Heck yeah.
For our DFW show, we interviewed Drew about his wrestling venture and had a local Oklahoma City celebrity on. And so if you haven't seen that one, you'll definitely want to check that one out. And then, with our NARO conversation that we had. Today, we are all in our respective places once again. It's kind of nice to be able to have an easy setup and to jump into a conversation. And we are so honored to have with us Paula, and I learned how to pronounce her last name just now. So if you're seeing the spelling of it and you're trying to pronounce it, I promise you you're getting it wrong. But Paula, tell us. So okay, Paula, tell us again, how is it pronounced and what does it mean?
All right. It is pronounced Rauchfuss. When I do any of my speaking for introductions, I always say rhymes with office. And when you look at all the spelling, there's a whole bunch of S's, a CH that doesn't belong. Shortly after I got there, it got in my marriage, I asked my father-in-law if we could shorten it and just throw out all those letters. And he really didn't find that funny. I thought it was worth the question.
Well, you said it was German, right?
It's very German.
Very German. Well, your father-in-law sounds like he had that very German sense of humor. I don't think so.
Yeah, so raw means smoke, and fuss, F-U-S-S, is foot in German. So it's smoke foot. That may be some cross codes in our family. I don't know.
After hearing the meaning, does anybody ever call you Smokefoot after that?
You know, we went to Germany probably 3 years ago, and a lot of people recognized our name and said Smokefoot and stuff. We're like, yeah, that's us. We're just dumb Americans, but yeah, that's us.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. This is a fun opportunity to dive more into the world of land administration, which Paula has had a very long, illustrious career in. Paula, tell us, how did you get started in the industry? How did you get started in the profession? Kind of give us a rundown of your path.
Great. Yes. My mom had a friend back in 1984 who did a placement agency, and I graduated high school, and I knew I didn't want to go to college because I had no clue what I'd study. All I knew is I wanted to type a lot and wear great clothes in an office. That's literally
Bingo.
all I knew I wanted my career to be. So my mom hooked up with her friend. I got a job as a receptionist, and this is now 85, 84, 85. I was there for a year, and then I saw all these people walk into the elevator with boxes and crying and hugging. And I was just sitting at the receptionist desk going, "What's wrong with everyone? They're so sad." Had no idea what was going on, but I was cheap labor. So I weathered through 86 and $9 barrel oil. Then I grew through the ranks, and I did go back. I went to night school and got my degree in 3 years' time and worked a 40-hour work week. So I was really proud of that accomplishment. I solely did that for me. And then kind of started to grow. I became a land secretary. Then I became a lease analyst. Then I became a land coordinator. And then after that, I left the industry and I went to work at Oracle. They had a vertical market where they had a partnership with Phillips 66 and Carnegie, the old Carnegie, and they donated Landman to come in and write the software tool. So I was hired to come in and do training and write the documentation to how to use the tool and then train on it. So I was a curriculum writer, if you will.
It's awesome.
And I did that for 4 years. And then Oracle got out of that vertical market. The tool went down to Torch Energy down through Texas, became what was called Novastar. And then it came full circle all the way back up to P2. And it's still with P2 now.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really, really wild. But, when I left oil and gas to go software, I always say that was my new boyfriend. Like, I'm dipped to the old guy. Oil and gas is done. I'm a software girl now. I'm going to do both things. He drives a great car. He's got crap loads of money. I love this. And then he broke up with me. I went wobbling back to the industry, and they'll always take you back. And then after that, I spent probably 12 years with Encana and grew through a lead role, a group leader role, and then became the South Rockies land administration manager. And that journey was really challenging because we had a major class action lawsuit in Colorado to work through and an implementation on the heels of that. That was a heck of a great ride. I really loved it there. And then still at Encana, I went into a landman role. And then I left because I just felt like I needed to grow, stretch my wings. I felt like a lot of the young people were passing me by with their skills and their knowledge. So I went and took a role as a land manager, which was not my skill set. And I told them, I'm like, you don't want me. No, I think you're going to be great here. I'm like, I am not a land manager. I don't have that vision like a landman. I could take care of everything you do, but I'm not that person out doing it. And they're like, no, it's great. I left there and then took another land admin role. And then in 2020, Steptoe and Johnson put out a job that they were looking to hire someone to do business development for them. And their attorneys had this great idea that we help our clients buy and sell, mergers. And then they get this new asset, nobody knows what to do next. So the attorneys were like, well, let's offer a service through the law firm. We'll make it a separate PLLC and we'll just build it up and see where that takes us. And so that was 2020, COVID hit. I was working at a law firm. I was suddenly billable hours, which was like, what's that? I have no idea. Nobody could travel and train me. And then everyone was trying to get their feet under them with Zoom meetings and
Yeah.
all that noise.
Oh my gosh.
Got our first client by May of that 2020 year. And then it just kept growing. And I placed the bet that this would be successful. That's why I left my really great gig, because I thought there's something to this outsourcing. I think this might take off. I think there's a need out there. And especially with all the PE money in the market, they don't want big teams. They don't want big processes. They're going to do it on the skinny. So I thought, yeah, I think there's something to it. I rode that journey with them until the beginning of the year. I said, hey, Steptoe, when I interviewed with them, I'm like, dudes, I'm here for 3 to 5. Rolling out, pushing 60, gotta go. And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. So at the beginning of the year, I'm like, dudes,
Peace out.
yeah, I'm out. And they said, oh, okay. I said, I'll stick with you through the rest of the year. We'll get my replacement put in place. That took no time because she's amazing. And then I became a lease analyst for one of our clients. Very great client, really good work, but I quickly found out I suck as a lease analyst. It was my favorite job. It's what took me everywhere in my career, but she's no good. So I popped out of that earlier than the end of the year because I thought I was terrified what I would do to my clients' records. So I'm like, y'all need me to go.
Being very honest.
I was terrified. So I rolled out October 1st, came down to winter in Arizona where we have a home. And then some consulting work landed in my lap. And it was the kind of work that didn't require me to do anyone's records. It was really just an opportunity to network with people, rub elbows,
Fantastic.
get the word out. I love to present. Public speaking is the weirdest thing. But, so that's kind of what I'm doing through the fall, just some consulting stuff and whatever comes my way.
That's fantastic. Talk about a full circle of the career, everything from sitting at the front desk to software to being able to start up. Many, many years in Canada and Centennial. Is that the other one that you were at? Is that right? Okay. Yeah, you have definitely seen. I thought you were going to say at the beginning of that, of seeing everybody walking out, and I'm assuming they were all from an operator that you were working with. Is that right? Maybe.
I think so. I was so young. I don't even know.
I just thought you looking at that and being like, I see an industry where people are getting let go. This is the one. This is it. This is what I want. I want that dread and despair every 8 years or whatever we've seen. That is really quite the story. And whenever you were talking about software, what do you remember as the first software in the oil and gas world that you worked with?
My very first one was Excalibur.
Was it really?
And so after that receptionist job, that was a year and a half. And then they out, and then who they bought is where I was a land secretary. And I just started picking up the software. Let's just say I flunked in geometry in high school, but I was really good in the programming class.
Nice.
I got it. So I became a super user and they were on Excalibur. And I would go to those conferences every year, which were really fun. But I'm like, you know what? I could do that public speaking. That should be a goal. I could go work for a software. And that was kind of what drew me to Oracle when that opportunity showed up. Plus, I had just finished my business degree at night. And I was kind of funny when I applied for the job. I was just curious, what's my new knowledge going to get me now? After I spent all that money in college, is it going to help my salary? And it doubled,
That's fantastic.
doubled. Yeah, back
Holy
in
cow.
the late 90s. And it
That's
was
amazing.
that whole IT space at the time. It was just such a cool journey and so far ahead of oil and gas. When I came back to oil and gas, I was like, you guys aren't using net meeting? That was our big tool we used, and you're not using this. And I was like, oh, it's kind of a bummer. But that boyfriend, he got remarried.
I always like, and that's pretty interesting about the first software there. I remember the first thing that I set whenever I sat in my chair as a lease analyst, and the programs that we have were almost like the old Microsoft DOS, of where it was like a black screen with like the lime green, and it was all there was no mouse, or I mean, we had a mouse, but it was no mouse driven. It was all keypad driven. And I remember even then I was like, well, I'd never experienced anything like that because I had just come out of college, but I was like, this must just be how oil and gas software is. And thank goodness, I think all three of us can say we've seen the full spectrum change, and now everything's working into AI and integrating that into the space, and you're getting such beautiful Power BI reports, and like it's so much different than what it was. But I always like that question of seeing what you started out with, because it was mad world.
Still around.
It is.
Yeah. Actually, the last system I worked in-house was Excalibur, and it wasn't that long ago.
Kidding.
I'm just shocked that there are people that love it. They will die loving it.
Isn't that something? So what do you think it is about the energy industry? And not to get off on a tangent with it, but
We like tangents.
I do. Yeah, I do too. What do you think it is about the energy industry that makes it so not slow to change, but it's tactful, I guess, in its strategy of change? And so, Paula, what do you think about, like, for the softwares that you've seen over the years and how companies change everything from the things that you saw in Canada or in Canada, excuse me, or Centennial? Like, were those companies proactive on being able to add in, new software, or were they kind of like what we've just said here, of more on the, this is what we're all used to, and this is what our company is going with?
It's a heck of a good question because change management is the biggest thing to tackle here.
Yeah.
Is people get entrenched, and oil and gas is very cost conscious. I remember at Encana, our tool, we didn't take upgrades. We were 7 upgrades behind, and 20,000 uniques on the tool of Excalibur at the time. That's a lot of Band-Aids to fix.
That is. Oh my gosh. Seriously.
Everything. So I guess what I'd look back and say is it's change management with all the different softwares is really hard on the people. They are high producers and really hard workers. And if they have to take out a day or two to learn the new system, that sets them off. It's not a comfort for them or any of that. And I feel like that whole lease analyst job has really changed. I did a presentation, I don't even remember what it was called, but really just talking about all the roles that lease analysts have taken on over the years. They have so changed to GIS, to there always been filing. That's always been a thing, but all the digital filing now, which means a whole big scan project behind that. They're working more with JIB, like on the DO side. Sometimes they're setting up the whole JIB deck and running that piece for accounting. Like, it has expanded and grown so much, in my opinion. And then when you look at the tools, those have to come along in that journey because the job itself is changing so much. So I've always been a fan of the new technologies and the tools. I've never struggled with that change because I always felt like that's really what I needed to do to stay relevant. I was always aware of that. But I think that the offerings out there are very interesting. I think there's a lot of disruption in how even I think about things because of these new tools. I would even say like provisioning and AI go together like a marriage. And shall I never read a lease again if I'm lucky? And I could just let it run through AI and pick up all my provisions and clauses. So it's a great question. What do you think? I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Drew, we could make this a segment to where whenever we have a guest on, we will read their LinkedIn posts out loud and see what their reactions are. But Paula actually had a post today, this morning, that I saw, and it fits right in line with this. And it says, with an unlimited or limited budget, I think I would wrap my arms around AI-driven land analytics. It's a hot topic right now with great bandwidth for improved.
Heck yeah.
So you've already been starting down that pathway, but like expound on that. Like, what if you had that unlimited budget and you had the autonomy, what would you do with today's technology that you see?
I always wanted to do a Paulabot. I wanted to do RPA and build a bot that could enter leases. So your company just gets all these leases, say up in NODAC, and they're all basically the same. They're in a square world. Your legals are clean and square and lovely. But I always thought if you had a bot that would enter those leases, because you've always got the same things, less or lessee, you got dates, you got a legal, you've got your royalty rates, you've got an addendum with changing royalty rate. I mean, there's just certain regularities there that I thought, Kai, why couldn't a bot who could work 24 hours a day till it's done bring in that data? And that the spirit of that thought was always before a lot of the software vendors are now offering your own upload template.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do it yourself, because in the past, uploading a new acquisition was like a 2-month drill with 80% accuracy. So I found that I always wanted to make a Paulabot. I never got to. When I got to step 2, I'm like, we need to make a Paulabot. And they're like, yeah, but we were so busy and things just picked up for us so quickly. That never came to be. But now you've got AI and you got agentic AI. And that's my new hot button. I just think there's so much capability there in land to do some of those back office processes that are pretty uniform. You know, think about invoicing. I know a lot of companies do this to code invoices that come in, and they're using AI to read through it and then go populate your system with it, with RPA or whatever tool it is. Brilliant. Brilliant. And what took a month and a half to get in, thousands of invoices, they can get them entered for the month in 3 days.
And that goes back to too what you were saying of a lot of these oil and gas companies. They look and they say, if I have to take somebody off to train on a new system or something like that for the next 2 days, that's 2 days where they're not able to, get their job function done. If you get a acquisition and you get in 28,000 leases, now that goes on top of that person that already has their day-to-day. And so now you have to figure out a way of how are we going to inload all this. And just exactly like what you said, it's 6-month process of getting in all the new stuff, keeping your day-to-day managing, and you can outsource and you can do all this. But yeah, we really have seen a change of, there's going to be some cool programs that are going to be coming out pretty soon that, there's, Jerris, you'd say there's things out already that are able to put things in and to be able to really help those teams out.
Yeah. It's so cool.
We're doing that. Our Roland app can take, and you can customize it for whatever provisions you want and how you want them defined and how you want them formatted. I personally am still a believer of the human in the loop process, to where there still needs to be some validation.
Absolutely.
I do think we will get to a point, though, to where we will have high enough confidence that human in the loop aspect will diminish. But I am curious, Paula, with all the people that you have worked with and talked to today, there's still a lot of reluctance and hesitation on allowing AI to do too much, because they are afraid of how accurate it's going to be. And they're really afraid of, is it really going to perform as was sold or was promised, et cetera. And so I wouldn't say, like, people are becoming more willing to experiment and they are becoming more willing to try it, but they're doing that with tremendous trepidation. And so for your perspective, what do you think it's going to take for more people to have a higher level of confidence and be willing to put some trust into what this technology already can deliver and will continue to deliver?
That's a good question. A couple things. I think people don't want to adopt it because it's the what's in it for me. I don't want to lose my job. And if I get this whole thing inboarded in my company, I'm just going to be outsourced and no good anymore. And I think that has to go away because, Jerris, that's a great point, is there has to be oversight. And you can't throw it through AI, cross your fingers, and then get a terrible outcome and wonder why. Think there's a collaborative aspect to that, which is, yes, use those tools. Maybe it's a workflow tool, maybe it's provisioning your leases, maybe it's a bot, whatever. But then you high grade your analysts to have that oversight. In my experience, if you took a report and dumped it into Excel, most senior and even mid-level, not so much the junior level, they'll look at data on a spreadsheet and go, well, that expiration date's in the past, and you're telling me it's still in its term with a paid up status. Well, that's just wrong. So that oversight and that human aspect to go in and check that data and look at it and sniff out, that jumps out so often in a spreadsheet, I think. When you've dumped it all in and you're looking at it, it just jumps out and then you're like, yeah, that's wrong. And so you go back. So I absolutely believe there's the component of the human, the oversight and the checking, the QC. But where you have them problems, your skilled analysts are working the problem, not the underlying easy clerical stuff, if you will. First of all, lease analysts will never like you if you call them a clerk. So I fully doubt. But those real easy setups, but they're really going to work on the puzzle. That's something that's not working out or that requires more research or stuff. The second thing there, I think that people are going to want, because I know Paula wants it, is help with writing the prompts. I think that language of just asking the right question to get the right information back, I think is a giant hill. So I use ChatGPT to help me design my front yard. We're up in the mountains by Glenwood Springs in Colorado, and we have really a rough ram land kind of front yard. And so I took a picture because next year my goal is landscaping. So I took a picture and I put it through ChatGPT and I'm like, design me a cool front yard that's rustic in the mountains, has a sidewalk, maybe some flowers, blah, blah, blah. And it came back. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. Thankfully, it didn't come back as an English rose garden, but I still had to go back and go, yeah, we're close, but that's not it. So I think the prompting for people to, and frankly, nobody's got time to learn the prompting. And they get frustrated after 5 tries. I write it, I get this back. Nope, that's not right. I rewrite it, I get this back. Close, but not yet. Well, by the time you hit the 5th prompt to get it right, you got to get back to your job. And so I think that the prompting is going to be really key for adoption and getting people up to speed. And that'll be a really big thing.
I'd agree. I definitely agree with that. It's made such incredible progress over the last few years. Like I remember the first time somebody told me, "Hey, you need to check this ChatGPT system out." And like I you didn't know what, kind of like the very first time you saw Google, like what do I even put into it? What do I ask it? Yeah, and now it just is kind of second nature and it's just part of your day. But it's very, very interesting where it's come from. I think the being able to know how to prompt correctly and being able to have, these different programs like the one that Jerris has worked on and the other litany of ones that are kind of in the market right now for the energy space. I know that they're all leveraging those great, experts in each one of these different fields to be able to make sure that they can pre-prompt and they can kind of build that back end of it so that the end user or the person that's sitting in that lease analyst role doesn't have to have that crazy deep background that they used to. But boy, it helps to be able to have, kind of that closed circle loop like Jerris was talking about, to be able to have eyes on it too.
Well, I would say, Jerris, I sat in one of your presentations. I can't remember what conference it was. And you had everyone get off their phone and you walked us through online chat and helped us write a prompt to get something back. I swear to you, that was the very first time I ever did it. And I thought, so that's it. That took the mystic out of it. Because
Yeah.
I sat there one time with you and did it, and you did it with a big room of people. So that's why I think that prompting thing and helping people just get started. Once they get started and they could see a practical application maybe outside of their work, then maybe they'll have courage to bring it inside their work.
Yeah. I've actually, since I did that exercise, I've learned some things over the last couple of weeks that I've been sharing with people. And I've known for a while that AI was great at helping AI prompt, if that makes sense. But I discovered a phrase that can be used that can do so much of that heavy lifting for you. And so what I've begun teaching people is that start off with generate a prompt that works well for you today to fill in the blank. And so, like, you could say, generate a prompt that works well for you today to analyze an oil and gas lease. And what you will see is it will then generate paragraphs of what a very meticulous, thoughtful prompt looks like. And then you have the opportunity to look at it and see, is it hitting all the stuff that you want to hit? And if it is, then you say, use it. And then it does it.
Interesting.
Or if there's something that you want it to do differently, you just say, instead of this provision, do this one, or I need to define this provision this way. But you can use
Amazing.
that with pretty much anything, and it does 90% or more of that heavy lifting for you. So just
But
tell it, and it,
if I understand you, you're saying use AI to write my AI prompt.
correct.
What?
And that seems oddly redundant because you would think it just knows that. But it's a very healthy exercise for both sides, for it to know exactly what you're trying to do and for you to review beforehand how it's going to try to accomplish that
That makes
task.
sense.
Wow.
Very cool. We need to do a whole episode on just tips and tricks of the AI world with Jerris Johnson. I think that'd
Yes,
work.
please do.
Yeah,
Please.
that'd be
We'll
very.
sell tickets to that one.
You have a band too.
Well, Paula, after like you have rounded a career and you've had so many highlights with it, and looking back at everything that you've done and the different companies that you've worked for, one of the things that you said a little bit earlier was how you would stay relevant, and you were talking about staying relevant. And for a lot of people, and that I don't know at what point, the midway point past that, where you were becoming a land manager, at what point in that process, whenever you were like, I've got to stay relevant, what were some of the things that you did or that you would suggest to people now to do that are kind of maybe at that same stage in their career? What can they do to stay relevant, stay engaged, and to be able to, I don't want to say, for lack of a better term, like finish strong, go through the rest of their career finishing strong? What would you say to that?
I'm going to say this wrong. Quit your job and get another one. I look at resume. I never thought I would be the supervisor that would look at a resume. And if you didn't have any stability there for 10 years, I was like, I completely changed that viewpoint when I learned and realized that when people do leave these companies they've been with, say out of college, their resume does not compete with the resume of somebody who maybe only stayed 5 to 6 years because they've learned a different way of doing maybe the same thing. Because when you're long term at the company, you really only know that company's way of doing things.
That's true.
You're excellent at it, no doubt there, but you have nothing else to bring to the table. So what I started realizing probably 10 years ago is that people, and I don't mean the comic jumpers, but just people who change, maybe they have goals and methodology in mind to change. I like those resumes because it tells me you're not afraid. You're not going to be that person who sits in the back and just does the status quo for 20 years. I mean, even if you've changed jobs within the company, you're still under the umbrella of that company. The way the company values risk, the way the company makes their business decisions, that's all forming you. And there's other ways to think about that when you get in with another job. So sadly, I would say quit your job. I don't mean it like that.
That's a damn good answer. I'm telling you, that really is. I've heard other people say very similar of to stay engage, to show your worth, to be able to continue to move forward. If the career progression is moving and building yourself and keeping yourself very agile, I think that's a wonderful point to make. Love that.
Yeah, I would have never thought I would come to that. You know, our parents worked forever at one place and they were their 40-year ring. And they were
Right. The Rolex, the 40-year Rolex too. Yeah, absolutely.
top, right? Yeah. So that's one thing I would say yes to the icky projects, because nobody wants to do them. But if you stand up and say, you know what, I'll take that on. Somebody can get me up to speed. I'll do my best and try to get that finished. You grow from that. You will gain skills from that experience. So I would just say take on the icky stuff. To stay relevant, I would say adopt to the new stuff. Don't let change management bury you in quicksand. Adopt and get on with it because nothing goes backwards. I mean, our cycle goes up and down here in oil and gas, but we never go backwards, ever. We just run out of money and a play, and then we get more money and we find new rock.
That's right. That's exactly.
Yeah, it's so obvious.
You gave away the secrets. People are going to be coming for us for that. Out of the whole career, the last thing that I really want to hit with you is, out of the whole career, what are you the most proud of?
Relationships of people I got to mentor. There's just nothing better than seeing those people in a big deep hug, and then you go back and you talk about the fun you had, or you taught me this, it meant so much. Those relationships are key. They bring such warmth to my heart. And there are people I text all the time and we chit chat with, and we've all moved our own ways, but it would have to be the relationships and the connections and the friends I've made
It's
and who I
fantastic.
could influence and help them grow. That's been the best.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. I always think on the business trips, on the late nights, like on a plane, or running through the airport, or the I don't want to say the trials and tribulations of the business trips. Early on in my career, I was like, oh man, this is fun, but this is a lot of work. And then, midway through and later on, I was like, this is getting pretty taxing for this. But then I changed my mindset and I was like, these are the days that I'm going to look back on years from now as it was the most fun sitting, like sipping a glass of wine with a coworker and just talking about family, or talking about like what we're talking about today, the different things that we found that were the little tips and tricks that helped us, work better, the things that got us through the week. And much to your point of the people that I worked with 15 years ago, I still can text and everything. And I think about all the good times that I had just being able to sit. And I think that would probably umbrella to most people would say that with any of the relationships that they had made throughout their career. But in oil and gas, it's just really special. I agree with you. The mentorships, being able to have these things, I look back on every day and I'm like, man, we're living the good old days right now. Like I love every day that I'm getting to do it. And I'm excited to be able to look back on it with such fondness.
But that's awesome. And when you're 42 years in, from 84 to 2025, you do look back at that and think, gosh, what a journey this has been. What a fabulous industry. What tremendous people, really smart people we got to work with. I mean, those are all the really good feelings when you're sitting with your 7 and 7 going, that was a hell of a run.
Heck yeah. Well, congratulations to where you're at right now.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Paula, thank you so much for joining us in this discussion today. My closing takeaway that I had from all this was I think the inspiration that you shared in terms of, I mean, you mentioned 42 years, and that was 42 years of continuous learning. Like I never heard or caught a point during that career when you settled. And even now that you are quasi-retired, you're still dreaming about what is the next tool or the next innovation that I would like to work on or that could be deployed. And I think there's a lot of inspiration that all of us can take from that. So thank you for joining us and for sharing your story with us.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invite. This has been really fun.
Good deal. Well, for Jerris Johnson, I'm Drew Hopkins, and Paula Rauchfuss, we really appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you, everybody listening. Please like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff that the kids are talking about. I don't know. What do you think, Jerris? Like skibbity something or whatever the phrase is today? I don't know.
I think Skibbity's out.
Skibbity's out?
I think so.
Man, I've got a lot of phone calls to make then. All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Real Deal Landman Show.
All right. Thank you all.